When we picture the fall of Rome, our minds conjure dramatic scenes, barbarian hordes breaching the walls, the collapse of once invincible legions, and ambitious emperors meeting their fate in cold marble palaces. But empires rarely end in a single explosive catastrophe. The true collapse usually begins far more quietly, from the inside, years before the final blow. And one of the most potent yet easily underestimated forces driving that internal rot is simply money. Rome didn't just succumb to invading armies or corrupt leaders. A critical factor was the slow, decades-long disintegration of its currency, which ultimately shattered trust, strangled trade, and broke the empire's economic backbone. What's truly chilling is how this story has played out, again and again, right up to the present day. For centuries, the Roman world ran on the silver denarius, first struck in 211 BC. Nearly pure silver, it was accepted everywhere from Britain to Egypt. Soldiers drew their pay in it, merchants relied on it, and ordinary citizens safely stored their wealth in it. The denarius was more than just pocket change. It was a tangible symbol of Roman power and stability. As long as people believed in the empire, they had faith in its money. Yet maintaining a vast empire is draining. By the 2nd century AD, Rome was stretched thin, defending enormous borders, funding massive armies, maintaining roads and aqueducts, and waging wars on several fronts. The treasury was buckling under the strain. Faced with mounting bills, emperors reached for a familiar but lethal tactic: debasement. Instead of risking revolt by raising taxes, they simply reduced the silver content in the denarius. This let them mint far more coins from the same limited amount of precious metal. Under Augustus, the denarius was around 95% silver. By Caracalla's rule, that figure had plummeted to roughly 50%. By the time of Gallienus, in the mid-3rd century, it contained less than 5% silver. What had once been solid silver was now little more than bronze with a fragile silver wash. People didn't need an official decree to understand what was happening. They could literally feel the cheapness in their hands. As the coins were debased, prices skyrocketed. Goods that once cost a single denarius suddenly required a handful. Soldiers started demanding higher pay just to keep their families fed. Merchants, losing faith, began rejecting the shoddy coinage, favoring gold or barter instead. In many regions, local economies simply abandoned imperial coinage altogether because all trust had evaporated. The government's panic-driven response? Debase it further, hoping sheer quantity could mask the lost value. It couldn't. This vicious spiral of inflation and mistrust accelerated the economic decay. The entire system boiled over during the crisis of the 3rd century, 235 to 284 AD. The empire weathered constant invasions, devastating plagues, internal power struggles, and a dizzying turnover of emperors, some ruling for only months before being assassinated. Underlying all this political carnage was a financial system that lay in utter ruins. Taxes collected in the worthless coins instantly lost their value. Farmers walked off their land rather than pay crushing levies. Trade routes ground to a halt. The state tried harsh controls, fixed prices, forced labor, direct seizures of property, but nothing worked because the very foundation of the economy, the currency itself, was fundamentally broken. In 301 AD, Diocletian attempted to impose order with the edict on maximum prices, fixing the cost for over 1,000 goods. Violators were threatened with death. But when money holds no real value, no law can compel stability. Black markets flourished as people traded outside the doomed official system. A decade later, Constantine introduced the solidus, a new stable gold coin. It was effective, especially in the Eastern Roman Empire, where it provided a financial anchor for the next 1,000 years. But in the West, the damage was terminal. Debasement had hollowed out Rome's economic core. Armies couldn't be reliably paid, trade had vanished, and public legitimacy was gone. Rome's collapse wasn't a sudden fall. It was a slow, deliberate unraveling, with the currency crisis tugging fiercely on one of the most vital threads. Rome's tragedy wasn't unique. It was merely the first grand staging of a perpetual pattern. In Weimar Germany after World War I, the government printed money to manage crippling reparations. By 1923, hyperinflation meant a single loaf of bread cost billions of marks. People literally wheeled their wages home, savings vanished overnight, and desperation fueled political extremism. In Zimbabwe during the 2000s, similar policies led to inflation so absurd that prices reportedly doubled daily, hitting an annual rate of 89.7 sextillion%. Shops couldn't keep shelves stocked. Eventually, the currency was totally abandoned. Even our modern economies follow this dynamic, albeit at a slower pace. In 1971, the US dollar severed its link to gold, becoming a fiat currency backed only by trust in the government. Since then, debt has ballooned, the money supply has expanded exponentially, and purchasing power has steadily eroded. The coins and notes in our wallets look the same, but their actual buying power has shrunk, just like Rome's denarius. Governments frame inflation as healthy growth, debt as necessary investment, and soaring markets as proof of success. But the core mechanism persists, quietly siphoning value from the money held by ordinary people. Rome's collapse was imperial. Weimar's was national, Zimbabwe's was local. Today, the entire world operates on fiat currencies, immense debt, and central banks prepared to unleash trillions during any crisis. If global trust in this financial edifice ever seriously wavers, the fallout won't be contained. It will ripple across every continent, and as always, the suffering won't start with the elites holding tangible assets. It will first fall upon ordinary citizens relying on steady salaries, pensions, and hard-earned savings. Rome's story is far more than ancient history. It's a critical instruction manual. Inflation isn't random, it's policy. True wealth lies in assets that retain value when the currency fails. No system is permanently stable. Romans, Germans in 1913, and Zimbabweans in the 1980s all utterly believed their money was secure. They were profoundly mistaken. When the foundation of money crumbles, society begins to crack. Contracts fail, armies defect, and governments lose their authority. The barbarians at the gate may finish the job, but the collapse always begins in the treasury. History doesn't repeat itself precisely, but it certainly rhymes. The Roman currency crisis isn't just a tale, it's a stark blueprint. Did this historical lens change how you view modern economic instability?